So good evening, folks. My name is Jacob Huffman. I'm a associate urban designer and planner with the City of Charlotte's Urban Design Center. We also have some colleagues of mine on the call. Aaron Chauntry, who is the manager of the Urban Design Center. Anthony Mendez, who is with CDOT. Aaron Gillespie, I believe I saw you on the call as well. Aaron is with Economic Development. Jackie Claire is with us as well from Housing and Neighborhood Services. And Katie joined us from the Office of Sustainability. So I have a presentation that we'll run through to give an overview of the placemaking program. And hopefully we've got some good questions. I'm going to try not to talk too long so that we can give some space for folks to ask questions. If I don't know it or Aaron Chauntry doesn't know it, any of the other four folks on the call with us tonight will probably be able to answer your question. So let's dive in. The placemaking program. Very simply, what we are doing through the placemaking program is connecting with the community in order to achieve public space goals that are dreamt up by community members and organizations. We often see these in the form of activating underutilized or leftover spaces, streetscape improvements, art and beautification efforts, and creating space for folks to gather in the community. From Fred Kent, the founder of the nonprofit Project for Public Spaces. It says, everyone has the right to live in a great place. More importantly, everyone has the right to contribute to making the place where they already live great. As a native Charlottean, that's certainly a big part of why I do what I do and why I'm here tonight, and certainly why everyone on this call is here with us tonight. So we've had some questions since we opened the application from folks who can apply. And it's basically everyone. The four that we see most often are neighborhood and homeowners associations, community organizations, businesses or merchant organizations, and individuals. And the key with individuals just being that there is written support of support from the community where the project is going to take place. And the only requirement that we have for these folks is that we have groups and individuals applying that are, for the majority, living within the limits of the city of Charlotte. What do we include in the grants? Of course, number one, funding for materials. We also, staff in the Urban Design Center, will provide design assistance as necessary, depending project to project. We can also provide help choosing materials. We have a lot of experience, lots of projects, and can point you in the right direction for materials. We coordinate with other city departments, so the other folks that are on the call here tonight, as well as quite a few who are not here, have been big allies for us as we've been implementing placemaking grants for many years now. And a lot of that has to do with just obtaining the approvals and permitting that might need to take place with your project. We can also provide to you communication and support of your community meetings. And these community meetings and community engagement as a whole for placemaking is really key. So we're happy to lend guidance and assistance as you direct your projects. If you've read the grant, this will be familiar to you, or the grant manual, I should say. This will be familiar to you. So these are a lot of the grant types that we see. So for various beautifications through wall murals and street murals, crosswalks and street furniture, signal cabinet wraps, and bus stop improvements. One note on bus stop improvements, speaking with the Arts and Transit Director, Chris Lang, a few weeks ago, well, oh gosh, it's probably been a couple of months now, but they have a new process in place for the approval of those. So that would be something that would have to kind of go through Arts and Transit. But again, the connection and coordination with those various departments is something we can certainly help you with. Pop-up plazas and parks. and community-oriented agriculture initiatives, which I'll spend a little bit of time touching on in just a minute. We've revamped that to be a 2-year implementation process. Street parklets, bike parking, playscapes, swings, sidewalk dining, programming for previously completed placemaking grants or placemaking projects. So we run the grant, but we also do direct as the city, we direct placemaking within in-house. Sustainable place-based infrastructure, also kind of a new one this year. I'll touch on that one too. And we'll also spend some time with technical assistance. The key thing I wanted to highlight on this slide is that every year we get new project ideas, and we very much welcome that. That helps us build out this program, helps us do placemaking better, helps you achieve your public space goals. So please bring new project ideas to us. We love them. So just to touch on community agriculture initiatives quickly. My background before joining the city, I spent 5 years working with various urban agriculture organizations here in Charlotte and elsewhere in the country. So from those experiences, my own personal experiences, as well as projects that we've funded through placemaking, and as well as when we look at the peer-reviewed literature from social sciences that have been studying community agriculture in an urban context for many decades. There's 2 things that continually pop up to negatively impact the success of those projects. The first is secure access to land, especially in fast-growing cities like Charlotte. Oftentimes, you will see projects implemented, and then in a year or 2, the land is maybe sold, or the land use changes. And then the agriculture system, whatever, if it's an orchard or a community garden, will have to be removed. So we will spend in the first year time ensuring secure access to the land. The second is volunteer attrition, and that's one that's just multifaceted. There's no one driver for that. Life happens to all of us. So time, energy, resources change. So individuals have to change up what they're doing. So we'll spend a little bit of time as well in that first year of building your organization's internal capacity. So capacity building is how I always refer to it. We also spend time in that first year with skills training to ensure that folks go into the implementation of the project with the necessary skills for building and maintaining a cultivated space. And then we also spend some time designing. Spending a year thinking about the site gives us opportunities for things like, where's the sun in the winter or in the summer? What are the warmest places? What's the microclimate like? All of those kinds of things factor into the way that you design the space. And then in the second year of implementation, we will actually build out the space. So that's when the majority of the funding will kick in. This is a new procedure that we're piloting this year. And we hope that it leads to best possible outcome for any projects that come along like this. Technical assistance grants. We spend a half a day with the community and we identify issues and opportunities. We take that and we develop we call it a playbook. And the playbook essentially is a document that lives on past that community engagement that you can continually refer to say, hey, we have a new funding source. We have an opportunity to address one of these issues and opportunities. What were they again? Boom, it's right there in the playbook. So it's just a great reference guide for continued work beyond the placemaking grant itself. And we also provide funding for a kickoff placemaking project within technical assistance grants. So sustainable place-based infrastructure. The Office of Sustainability may be able to give some additional funding to projects that fall within this category. From conversations with them, what we've heard is that they have 3 things that they're going to be looking for. The first is that these projects are aligned with the goals of the Strategic Energy Action Plan. I have a link to that. I have a few links I'm going to put in the chat after I finish talking. They also would like to see them focus on carbon mitigation or carbon reduction. So a carbon capturing along a busy corridor. And the third is education opportunities that advocate communities to address climate change. So those are the three that might be eligible for additional funding through the Office of Sustainability. So once grants are awarded, this is the process that will follow. So I will announce on April 1st the recipients of the grant for this year. And then we kick off and start diving into project development and public engagement. So again, public engagement is really key for placemaking. We require at least one public meeting for every project. Depending on the project, you may need more. And this engagement is intended to improve and refine your concept, ensure that you have community buy-in. Diversity is a great thing, and I think we all benefit from it. And the same is true for placemaking projects. So in these meetings, you're presenting your ideas, you're taking the feedback from that presentation, incorporating it into your project design. We're here to assist with that, of course. And then once it's finalized, we will come together and the placemaking recipients will present both to city staff as well as to each other what the project is that they're going forward with, which is really cool because that gives you an opportunity to hear what other placemaking projects are doing the same year. In October, we jump into installation and implementation. And the goal there is that we'll be done by the end of this year. So end of December 2022, those projects will be constructed and implemented. So again, just to note, not to harp too much on community engagement, but these community-driven ideas are definitely going to be the most successful, the more diversity and input that we have in the project and in its implementation. So, just stay flexible, stick with it. It's a process and it can challenge patience at times, but is ultimately absolutely worth it. And we are here to assist with that, of course. If you have not read the grant manual, which is another one of the links I'll drop into the chat for you. This is kind of the process for applying for the grant. First, you're going to need a project team. So at least 3, up to 6 members on that project team. Excuse me. Second, define the issue or the opportunity that your project is going to address. Third, we do need to see a strategy for how you are going to engage your community and how you're going to get folks to participate in any outreach efforts that you're going to do. Fourth, letters of support from a neighborhood association, from an equivalent organization, not from members of the project team, just to make sure that we have folks aware and nobody gets mad at us for doing a placemaking project. For our end, site photos are important for the site that you are planning to implement your project on, so that we kind of understand some initial conditions and maybe able to identify some things there. A conceptual design as well. And this does not need to be perfect or super refined. We just need to see the idea to get an understanding. You can also include what we call precedent imagery. So any pictures of maybe similar projects or a project that stimulated your thinking around this idea, just again to give us a sense of what you're trying to do and what it might end up looking like. We also would like to see a cost estimate. In the grant manual, we have a table of common placemaking projects that we see with cost estimates associated. I can't remember off the top of my head what page that is on. It's further back in the manual, maybe page 9 or 10. So yeah, just giving us a sense of what this is going to cost. We cap the funding at $25,000, and we have a minimum funding of $1,000. And then finally, so some projects are intended to be temporary, which is fine. Absolutely. Other projects are going to be more permanent, also fine. For the more permanent projects, for both, we would like to see an idea of how this is going to be maintained. And the idea is, just to make sure that we're not going to create a nuisance that someone tells us to remove. So these are the scoring criteria. If you are curious as to how we are going to rate and evaluate and determine the projects that are awarded, this will be completed by a interdepartmental team. So the folks on this call and some other folks will be part of that. So if you're curious as you're writing your grant, be sure that you're going through these items and making sure that you're addressing these so that we know, what your thinking is around all of these, and we can evaluate accurately. One thing to note, there is a bonus point possible for proposals that are located in corridors of opportunity. And that's another link that I will send out at the end of the presentation. Looking good on time. Okay, cool. So some things that we have learned in the right-of-way, we cannot do words and we cannot do advertisements. We cannot do little free libraries, and we're not able to do chalkboards that invite expression. You may have seen some of this around town. Safety is key. We do not want to see anything close to travel lanes or anything that might blow into a travel lane and impede traffic. And for CDOT's part, some regulations that they will require for signal cabinet wraps. These can only be in approved locations. Crosswalks and street murals have to meet certain traffic counts on the roads in which they're implemented. And again, we need approval of adjacent property owners. So those are some general rules that we've learned over the years. Some other lessons that we've learned, not going to harp on it, but engagement is super key. Everyone should be involved. The more people that are involved in the project, the better. Do not wait until the last minute to build partnerships and communicate with folks, both within the community as well as with us. For the city's part, communicating across departments, it can just take time. So we want to make sure that we're communicating internally in a timely fashion, as well as with the community as a whole. Be sure to think about the nitty-gritty aspects of the project. So if you have an event, who's going to clean up the trash? If you are doing beautification through carbon capturing along a corridor or implementing a community agriculture space, who's going to be doing the maintenance and watering the plants, things of that nature. And one thing to note, we have a list of a little over 70 local artists. We call this our creatives pool. We have applications currently open for existing creatives and new creatives. And these are everyone from muralists, sculptors, public performers, anything. So if you are working through a project idea and you need a creative and you are not able to find one, let us know. We might be able to connect you with one. If we don't know one, we know someone who knows one. So check in with us. We're here to help and drive those connections. A few grants from 2020. So we did not roll out the grant program in 2021 due to the general chaos of all things at the height of the pandemic there. So these are grants that were awarded in 2020 and then given a bit of a grace period to implement throughout this past year. So Galilee Green, this is off of Central Avenue. It's a faith-based organization. and they had a big lawn in front of their facility in which they wanted to implement a gathering space that would be both for the use of the participants in that facility's organizings and various goings on, as well as it's a pretty well trafficked corridor, foot traffic, pedestrian traffic. So as well as folks passing by. An additional component was an orchard that was a extension of existing production capacity for a community garden that's already located there. We did not fund that. That was a separate operation. Oh, and one thing to note, the design of this was informed and guided by the community, and our colleague Charlotte provided significant assistance in making sure everything fell into place in the right ways. So that's just some of the assistance that we're able to lend as designers. The Country Club Heights intersection mural. This is a project that was led by the community, designed by a local artist, and then the community came out and there was a community paint day to implement it. And then finally, Vision East Charlotte. So this is an East Town Market, and this project included a wall mural, improvements to public space, sculpture installation, and all of this kind of laid the groundwork for them to continue to be able to do community-oriented events centered around the arts. And lastly, wow, we are like right on time. Excellent. Lastly, we have some resources. These are included in the grant manual. These texts are available online. They may contribute to your own brainstorming around your project. We also have the link to the grant manual. I'll throw that in the chat. And that is my email, obviously, because it has my name in it. And that is my office phone. Please feel free to reach out with questions. I am here to answer any and all of them. And if I can't answer it, I'll find someone who can. So that is all for my part. I'd like to open up for questions at this point. And I will drop some stuff in the chat for y'all.
I'll also say that we are in a bit of a supply chain issue right now with some types of paint. So for paint that's going to be in the street to be able to sustain vehicular traffic, we usually suggest a traffic paint or a concrete stain. And both of those basically don't exist right now because of the supply chain. So if you have a project idea that's going to be in the street, we will absolutely work with you on timing to implement it and help secure those materials.
Aaron, I see a question from Hillary in the chat. Can you talk about how to use placemaking grants for community celebrations or events? Would you like to take that one? I think you have a little more experience with it than me.
Sure. Hey, Hillary. So yes, that category is really only open in City of Charlotte placemaking open spaces. So if it's not a space that was built through the placemaking program, then we are not currently funding programming there. No, you do not have any in South Park. We have a couple in the Beatties Ford Road corridor, and we have one in Prosperity Village. We also have experts here from CDOT and sustainability and economic development if there's any questions about sidewalk dining. So if you have any very specific questions, like, can I paint this here? Can I put that here? We have those resources on the phone tonight to answer your questions.
So I see one question from RS. If a permanent project is proposed on private property, are easements granted to the city required?
No, they're not. We can fund things on private property. There's no easements required.
Let's see, Hillary has another question. What about temporary installations like the lighted mushrooms or something like that?
Yeah, bring on the lighted mushroom. I love it.
I think we have worked with that artist in the past, I believe.
Yes, art installations are eligible.
See, Ashley Dorado asks, is it recommended to focus on one main project? Or is there an option to propose a few smaller projects within the same application and grant year?
Yeah, you can apply as many times with as many projects as you'd like. So I would say that there's not going to be more than one that's probably funded. We've not ever awarded multiple grants to one organization or applicant, but you know, I will say there has been a lot of competition for these grants. So if you have a strategy to apply with more than one project idea, that's fine. You're certainly allowed to. Any other questions specifically about your project ideas? If you all don't, oh, here's number 2. How does the city look at the ability of proposers to provide matching funds get taken into consideration during the application process? So Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think a match is in the criteria. No. So, but I would say that would only be considered as a positive thing if it, you know, came down to what we could or could not fund. So we use scoring as much as we can to inform what projects are selected, but we have a certain cutoff, you know, of $150,000. And so, you know, sometimes we have to pick and choose. So I think that certainly is a positive that would be considered if in that situation.
And that's $150,000 for all the grants for this year.
That's right.
The cutoff of 25,000 for individual projects. Just to clear.
Thanks, Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that is all that we have planned. If you don't have any questions, feel free to drop off. If you do, you can hang on as well. And Jacob and I and city staff can hang out here until everyone's good.
Awesome. So we have another question in the chat. Once the winners are announced, how flexible is the timeline for installation? Could it be sooner than October to December? I think it would depend, quite frankly, on the project. We do need to ensure that there is that community engagement component prior to moving forward with installation and implementation of the project.
Yeah, I think that if like you guys got it together and you're ready to go and you can meet all those requirements in a faster timeline, that's more than fine.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Thanks, Ashley. If you have a question, if you are kind of working on your project idea and questions come up between now and the application due date, you can always reach out to us, and we can also run project ideas around by the appropriate city department or whatever, just to see if they're good to go, if you have any question of that as well. So we're here to facilitate the application process.
Cool.
All right, Karen, Susan, I think y'all are the only community members left. So if y'all don't have any questions, we can hop off early.
Thank you, Aaron, Jackie, Katie, Anthony, for being here.
My pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Have a good night.